Hello, you idiots. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I always like to antagonize a little at the start. Thank you, Troy Miller, my mentor. I would not be here today if it wasn't for Troy. So thank you for the plane ticket. I just wouldn't have come. I would never have flown myself. Welcome to the Culture of Comedy. We're talking about the future of comedy. I have to say, the main subtopic here is what's funny today. And really the only thing that was funny today was that the Banff Springs Hotel considers that water pressure. So I only had 45 minutes for a shower, and I couldn't get all the shampoo out. So please forgive me if I create my own lather. No, it's a beautiful hotel. Thank you so much for hosting us. And I will definitely be back as a ghost to haunt it for an eternity. No better home for a ghost. Okay, so, well, as the turnout attests, something about the word funny brings in crowds, and we're going to be talking about funny today. But if you did come for kind of a break between talking about web portals and format rebranding, hoping to just laugh like a hyena, I've got some bad news. It's not that kind of panel. We're going to be talking about trends in comedy. We're going to be talking about where comedy is coming from now, and we're going to talk about programming, and hopefully we'll learn something along the way. I don't expect anyone to learn anything. I just was looking for a way to end that sentence. So let me introduce our illustrious panel. First of all, Mike Farah is here. Mike is the president of production for Funny or Die, overseeing the creative day-to-day operations for the premier comedy site, along with Funny or Die's television and feature projects, which are numerous and include the Zach Galifianakis Between Two Ferns, which is why in the States we have healthcare. So thanks, Mike. He's also executive producer of Billy on the Street, which is on Fuse, At Midnight, which is on Comedy Central, American Muscle, and a sports documentary on Discovery, so a wide range of interests there. And in November 2010, The Hollywood Reporter named Farah one of the top 35 executives under 35 to keep an eye on. That was previously called one of the top 35 to not take your eyes off of, but that editor was replaced with a 20-year-old. Sarah Fowlie is here, who you all know, director of comedy and independent productions for Bell Media. Sarah leads the development of comedic productions to air across Bell Media's family of channels: CTV, Comedy Network, Space, Much Much, Bravo, F. You have one called F? Sure. Oh, well, maybe X. Oh, there was an X. I deleted the X. Somebody's got to grab F. F, adult comedy. Okay, so she has notably produced Picnic Face, Hot Box, The John Dory Television Show, A Russell Peters Christmas, Match Game, Chase Me, I'm Sarah Fowlie, JFL All Access, and the upcoming Satisfaction. I made up one of those. I'm curious if you caught it. And Sarah's a Capricorn. Bruce Hills is with us. Bruce is not only the Chief Operating Officer at Just for Laughs, but Bruce Hills is also a great name for a subdivision of homes that are not quite as prestigious as the ones on Bruce Lake. But as you probably know, his Montreal Comedy Festival is the world's largest and most prestigious comedy event, taking place in July in Montreal. Well, it's the only comedy event taking place in July in Montreal. It's just a bad syntax there, but it has changed. It really has changed comedy and has become a premier destination for anybody who's interested in comedy. He's also involved with theatrical productions. He's done off-Broadway shows like Evil Dead the Musical, that's for real, and the Family Guy live shows and all sorts of other things. What else can I say about you? GQ magazine referred to Bruce as the most important man in international comedy. That's true. Yeah. They went on to describe him as kicking his heels up poolside in a smart and sassy summertime suit. It's an amazing spread. You have to... And Kate Lambert is with us. Yeah, Kate's great. Kate is VP of Comedy and Drama Development for FX Networks, in addition to being the primary development executive on such critically acclaimed efforts as Archer and Wilfred. The Married, why'd you put that in the resume? Sorry, boys. The Married, New Jersey-born USC grad, is hands-on with the upcoming efforts like The Americans. Okay, well, this is outdated, I see. It's also why it says you're looking forward to the happy ending on Breaking Bad. But FX is so unbelievably prodigious, and I have a lot of questions for you. And finally, we have Joe Lewis, head of original programming at Amazon. He oversees development and production of primetime original comedy series for distribution on Amazon Instant Video, which is a big game changer and disruptor, and makes me over at Netflix nervous. Amazon's first original half-hour comedies, Alpha House and Betas, premiered last year, and the second season of Alpha House is starting now. And they've got new shows like Transparent and Mozart in the Jungle that'll be released later this year. Or they are released, right? They're out. No.
Later this year.
Later this year.
We start shooting Transparent today.
So we'll meet back and we'll talk about that. Anyway, he joined Amazon from Bark, where he was the CEO of the streaming television startup. And prior to Bark, Lewis was the director of development at 20th Century Fox, and he was focused on developing comedy feature films. And prior to that, he was manager of development at Comedy Central. And prior to that, he was learning to walk. I don't know how you got all that in. Anyway, well, we are out of time. I'm so sorry we didn't have time for the panel. Apologies. Thank you guys so much. All right, I'm gonna sit down over here now. We're gonna ask some questions of each other. I wrote these down. Are we hot? Test blue. Test. All right, so I am interested in, you represent such a vast array of modern thinking about comedy. And kind of my first question is that about your taste, or is it because you're anticipating what's happening in the marketplace? And I'll ask Troy that one. Troy? No. I mean, do you want to jump in on that?
Sure. There's always a balance. I think at Amazon Studios, I think we're a little bit of an anomaly. We're so focused on, developing for our audience and, users just across Amazon. Our whole process is that we put pilots out there and we really want to get user feedback before it goes out there. So in some sense, we're curating the brand, we're creating what it is to begin with, and then we really look to the audience. And it's the same thing traditional networks, I guess, have always done with second season pickups. Do people like the show? Do they want to see the show? And we're trying to do that a little bit earlier.
And yet, unlike traditional networks, there isn't a built-in brand. There isn't a,
Sure.
We don't quite, we're starting to learn because of you what Amazon shows are, but someone's got to come up with that.
Yeah, so we have, an idea in our head of what the Amazon brand is, and now it's curating to that. I think for us it would be a mistake to, that idea of user experience in the past was what's your lead-in, and that was pretty much the extent of it. Yeah. And now it's how the shows interact with each other on the site. How do they, if you watch Transparent, does that feed into Mozart in the Jungle? And I think it's still necessary to know what your brand is, have a very clear idea, be able to tell people that, and that's what we're trying to do.
Now, I'm looking at Mike here for a second. You are probably in a much less traditional model, and you're probably focused more on creating things that make you guys laugh, it seems like. It's such inventive, out-of-the-box stuff.
Yeah, it definitely starts with Will Ferrell and Adam McKay, the founders, that, they're very hands-on still. Even 7 years later, they're really hands-on.
With each other? Or you mean they're in love still, or?
Well, potentially. You just don't know what's going on at Gary Sanchez all the time.
Have kept it alive.
Yeah, and so they know the entire staff, and it is like for us, for us it starts off as just being web stuff. There's not a ton of pressure when something really connects, like the Between Two Ferns with Obama. Like that's great. It seems like this big win. But, we make a lot of stuff that isn't nearly as good as that, and that's okay because it's about betting on the people to just go out and make stuff.
Well, and yet you made that show for IFC, which was so brilliantly
Spoils
hilarious.
of Babylon.
The Spoils of Babylon. Does everybody know what I'm talking about?
That's a
my
crazy
God.
one.
You can tell, comedy people can always tell because you just get this nagging kind of jealousy. Like, why didn't I go there? It's my era. What was that experience? Was that just concept first, or was it because of the director?
I think a lot of Funny or Die comes down to, like, I can't believe that group of people got together to do that thing. That feels really unexpected, but hopefully accessible to some degree. And so, yeah, that's Andrew Steele, our creative director, who kind of came up with that. And I don't know if you guys saw this crazy Spanish language movie called Casi de mi Padre that Will made.
Amazing.
And so, yeah, we definitely like making things that are just a little bit left of center, but I think the website and all of our content kind of works when it still has that, like, holy shit kind of feel. I can't believe those people did that, which leads to people sharing it.
And I'm just going to stay on you for 1 second and ask, when you talk about short form things like you've done with Funny or Die, do you apply, are you thinking with a different brain in effect when you're trying to turn it into a longer format? When you, if you had done Spoils of Babylon through a network, which is such a long shot anyway, but you probably would have done more of the traditional storytelling, right?
Yeah.
Of developed characters, hope that people just love them. And
It's tough. It's a balance. You obviously want to be making things that are funny, but at the end of the day, the website is really the engine that drives everything, and you have to write towards that intention. Writing for a viral video, and I hate using that word viral, but just for simplicity, we'll use it. Writing for something that's going to be shared online is different than writing for, a TV show, obviously. But I think it is working out the same muscles in terms of figuring out what's going to kind of pop, because there's so much crap out there,
Yeah.
and there's so much noise.
how did that work, by the way, Spoils of Babylon? Was that,
We're doing a second season.
great, excellent.
We aired it.
Everything
Yeah.
works
Did-
a
yeah.
little bit better once you tell them that Will Ferrell is going to be in it.
Oh, that's great.
No,
No,
to
he's
be
so
totally
brilliant.
honest, because
Right,
and I give IFC a ton of credit for kind of letting them go out and do
Yep.
that. So yeah, I think they are different genres that you obviously have to write for, but thematically it's kind of working with the same people and the same idea. And then we do take a lot into account of what the Funny or Die kind of social media landscape and the audience, what we can do to leverage that to hopefully bring some attention to it.
Nice. Okay, Bruce, you're up. Here's my question for you.
I can listen to Mike all day.
Are
so,
you've obviously got the festival, and I want you to talk about that festival a little bit. But also, you yourself are a producer, and you're making these things. Are you kind of? Do you find that the new landscape of Amazon and Netflix and that kind of thing is going to lead to more business for you? You think, or is it going to just lead to smaller business? Because that's the concern, that it's so niche.
Well, it's a good question. We've had mixed success in the States. We've had great success in Canada, thanks to a lot of people in this room. So we're always looking for additional outlets. So the more, the better for us. It's also about our trying to figure out how we're going to approach the standard stand-up shows. Can we create different models to attract different networks? One of the things we learned in our festival business is, we were looking at how things were changing and said, what? Next time we create a comedy festival, and we've produced a number of them, we have to come up with something unique. So, a very smart boy in my office by the name of Robbie Praw came up with a model in Toronto where he said, what, we're going to, instead of trying to take over the world, we go to Chicago, we got billboards all the way down the highway, let's go to Toronto, instead of go for this, let's just go for this.
Yep.
Let's sell 10,000 passes and go backwards and build a business model around that. Let's go to 10,000 smart comedy fans and say, if you don't have a smartphone, you can't attend. And we're going to make...
You sell the passes, or?
We sell the passes for anywhere from this year, we just launched on Tuesday, from $49 to $300, but the traditional pass last year for $99 gave you a headliner like Aziz Ansari and the access to 42 shows.
I'm going to take the $49 one. Just because
Exactly.
I've
Two
seen
shows.
Aziz and I don't want to, It's
So,
a lot. I don't. No, but that's really interesting. I mean, it seems like I know you're talking about a festival, but it does
Yeah.
seem like it's always seemed strange that the commercial in the middle is what drives the content around it, and it does seem like we're going toward a model where you buy the product basically, and then you get the shows. Yeah. Interesting. So have you launched that yet?
Yeah, we launched Tuesday.
Sorry, I didn't mean to call my own realization interesting.
Yeah, we launched on Tuesday.
Nice one. Good one, Mitch.
And we've already sold 3,500 passes in 6 days and have amazing headliners like Seth Meyers and Nick Offerman and who else do I have coming? Lena Dunham.
Do
So,
they know that you sold that many at $99?
Well, it's actually a very interesting model that we don't actually, in a number of cases in the lineup, what's interesting is that for a lot of the artists, all we say is what day they're performing, and depending on demand, we pick the theater. We designate
that's
the theater.
interesting. That's
we
smart.
also will increase the amount of shows, and we've built in a deal, very complicated, and let me tell you, that
Yeah.
was one of the hardest things we ever negotiated in Hollywood.
I'm sure all
how
you
we
guys are going through that.
compensate with success.
Yeah.
But if you, and basically what we want artists to drive their attendance and to be able to be compensated for that. So work with us.
Yeah, that's great.
Go out and tell your fans, and you get a bigger check.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Now, I'm going to turn to you and ask you, because you're doing such a different thing, it seems like. I mean, would you consider yourself more a buyer than a seller, or no?
No, I mean, we commission a lot of original programming every year, and I'm a production executive pretty much. I work on original programming, but, I'm representing a large network here.
Right, and when
Yeah.
you're commissioning things, you're basically saying, what have you got out to the community and seeing what comes in.
Well, yeah, but
So
we're
you're being
also-
pitched to,
Yeah,
basically,
I mean, at
more
this
than
point, we're
pitching.
working hand in hand with people, you know what I mean? After a certain amount of time, you've got relationships, you know people who you want to be working with, and we've been at it for a while, so it's kind of, we're working with people that we think can deliver on certain shows.
And are you changing the style? I mean, do you see a trend in comedy? Are you changing what you're developing because of, I mean, one question I wanted to ask everybody, it kind of leads me to you eventually, is has Louis changed the model, the TV show Louis, which I think it has in many ways, but
Yeah, I mean, I think you should definitely ask Kate, but
I mean, if I think of it.
I think it's changed, and I'll help you.
Okay.
But I think it's changed, well, on some levels, it's changed the expectations of some people. They're like, can I have a Louis deal? Can I get
the Louis
is
deal.
it the Louis deal available? And we're like, are you Louis? But, I think that for us, I think what it's changed is it's made a certain type of comedy that we are fans of, a certain type of storytelling, something sort of more cinematic with a really strong POV, palatable,
Yeah.
to a more mainstream audience, and that's awesome because all of us are probably fans of maybe more alt comedy, maybe more experimental comedy, and you're trying to use elements of that in a more sort of mass audience play. And I think, I'm definitely in the Louis army. Like he's an unbelievable
Yeah, no,
talent.
he is, and
Yeah.
it's an unusual. It reminds me kind of what happened in music in the '60s, where music in the '50s was the best singer and the best orchestra and the best songwriter, and then suddenly Bob Dylan came along, and people who maybe didn't have John Lennon's voice wasn't as pretty as Perry Como's, but it was personal,
Yeah.
and it feels like that's what's going on. Really interesting point, Mitch. Kate. When people talk, I don't expect everyone to understand what the Louis deal is. Do you mind just kind of saying what that is?
Louis walked in, he pitched actually 2 different shows. He was pitching, a single camera, half-hour, 20th traditional to be sold to the networks, a story about divorced dad, raising kids in New York. He had done a sketch presentation for HBO. We had seen it. We were like, well,
Of that same concept.
similar, more just sketch, didn't have the point of view. And we said, okay, well, you can go sell your amazing one, your point of view basically, and filter it into, a broadcast network, traditional, half hour. Or you could take $250,000, go shoot it.
Is that what it was? 250?
Yes, for the pilot that aired.
That's like, I don't know. That's
And most
like
of the first season.
2,000 all-access passes on an app. It's pretty good. I'm just angry I didn't get the 99. I jumped at the 49, and but yeah.
So in agreement to kind of do that, he said, well, okay, I'm going to go do, what is he going to do with 250? It's not like we need to be checking over his shoulder. I mean, the man has paid his 10,000 hours of storytelling
and specifically, I had heard, I think just in an interview, that he had said, look, I like first drafts, and I like messiness sometimes, and I want to be left alone.
Yeah, he had also had a show, an experience before at Lucky Louie, so I think he learned a lot. I think you grab an artist at the right time. Right, in their careers. There's a lot of stand-ups. I'm sure all of you see it. Just something changes.
Were there people at FX who just thought, first of all, FX develops so many good things. And I do want to ask you guys about your development budgets and how you figure that out. But just about every time somebody tells me about a project that sounds really interesting, it's you guys have bought it as a pilot. Is that, where does that come
That
from?
must make Joe feel really bad.
Well, no, but you're not. No, but actually, what's interesting about it is that's the pilot model. The flip side of
Right.
that is I find now that I've got a production pod over at Netflix, I find myself thinking, oh, good, I can't wait till FX passes on that because they can't do all of these. And
We do a lot of script development, so when you're hearing the pilot pickups, we don't do many straight the pilots. We actually do quite a bit of development
on scripts.
on scripts. Yeah, I'm trying
Yeah.
to think everything. Wilfred, The League is a script-mint show, you know, kind of
Uh-huh.
shot like Curb. We just shot Married and You're the Worst, which Married is the one with Judy Greer and Nat Faxon.
Oh,
That was
great.
the script.
Yeah.
All of comedians, Billy Crystal, Josh Gad,
Yep.
loose script. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, and you guys, Joe, you do make pilots, right? I mean, isn't that the model? And didn't you sort of have like a pilot process that you shared with the public?
Sure. So our pilot process, just for people that don't know, we make our pilots and then we put them out there and everyone gets to see them. There's no voting mechanism. You just watch it. You turn it off when you want to watch it. And then at the end, we look at all that data and we just pack it in a suitcase and bring it to Seattle and put it on a table. And we all talk about it and we figure out what to pick up based on some balance of what people have watched, you know, what we know that the audience doesn't, which is where the show's going, and user feedback from the site, and then critical response. And, you know, our third pilot season is going to be coming up later this year. We've done 2 so far. You know, it is the sort of thing I think we won't know for a few years whether we're right. I do know.
But you're working off of scripts. You're not going straight to.
Correct.
You're
We have
seeing
not.
scripts.
We are seeing scripts first. Yeah, we're developing 2 scripts.
And now this is interesting because you know in the I keep calling everything I come up with interesting. The second time was a joke. This time, anyway, but it does seem that you know in the old model people went off the Nielsen ratings and those were really approximations, right? So you'd look at something like Cheers or Everybody Loves Raymond that has a slow first year. And you don't completely trust those numbers. You believe in potential, right? In a world where you have those numbers, when you know exactly, not only do you know that people are watching it, I mean, they got to take it from you, right? So you know who's watching it, and you know when they stop watching. Are you concerned that that will squeeze out the possibility of potential and surprise and growth, really?
No, I mean, for me, you know, I think when you're doing, you know, jobs like mine and Kate's and any buyer, you know, you think about things a lot. And the first time tends to be much more risky. And you buy it and you say, this could be something. I'm going to develop it and see where it goes. And then it comes time where you've got 10 scripts and 4 slots for pilots. And that's when you start to overthink things and say, you know, do I want to do a show starring Jeffrey Tambor coming out of the closet as a transgender parent?
I wish you hadn't, because that's where we were going with Arrested Development season 4. He knows I'm upset about this too.
I apologize.
Guess what's not funny anymore? Transgenderism. Thanks, guys. No, it's a great show.
Yeah,
it really
so
is a great show.
it just allows us to not overthink it that second
and
time.
very unusual, and you would not have gotten it on somewhere else. you know.
Yeah, I think our whole goal is to be risk-taking. You know, I've taken a number of meetings here
Is
so
there
far.
is that
and
a studio? Was there a studio that brought that
There's
in? Or?
no studio. It's
just-
Jill walked in the door with an idea and a
Soloway.
script. Jill Soloway, who wrote and directed it, and promised to preserve the tone that was in that script, and it sounded like a good deal. And
Yeah.
3 months later, we were shooting the pilot.
Well, let me ask you this. Actually, it's kind of a question that Mike will have a different answer to, I have a feeling. But even though you're trying to do new shows, and all these people are trying to find new ways to do it, is it challenging because you are still going through the agency model, that you're still going to the powerhouse agencies, and they're the ones submitting talent or scripts or actors? Or are you really going out there and just trying to forge your own path? That's why I say Mike's is slightly different, right? You're not getting those things through agents.
No, both. I mean, I think it just comes down to anyone who wants to succeed in this industry has to be proactive. So how many scripts have you received that you just have fallen in love with and say, yes, I want to go do this? I mean, it can happen, but it's
Yep.
rare. So you have to develop your own relationships. You have to go and see what people are doing. You have to be out there watching stuff and just kind of see what's connecting. What's nice with Funny or Die is that we can just let people go and kind of trust them. And a lot of people at Funny or Die, myself included, got their jobs by what they're already out there making. And so it's just so much easier now, and I just think that's where we have the advantage, where there's not a huge microscope on what we're doing. And then once we get to know people and they have a good time working with us, then we can take those relationships and kind of move out with them.
What is that next step for Funny or Die? Is the idea to go into half hour, go into film? continue, I should say, in those forms?
Yeah, I don't think we want to forget what got us here because it's still working, and that's kind of how we stay really kind of top of mind for people. But TV has been very good to us, and we love we
You're
love
welcome.
just what's that?
You're welcome. Just on behalf of us in TV.
And yeah, we just like to be able to
We're
go
so
out.
happy to have you.
Oh, thank you. That's very interesting of you to say.
Okay, that time that was not me. That was not me.
I don't even know what the fuck I was saying. I was saying something about how
But I just
easy
mean,
it is
like,
to go out and
are,
make
do you,
stuff.
do you, here's my question. Do
Oh
you
yeah, I
have-
like TV because it pays you, and that's a nice thing.
Yeah, but do you have a development budget? Do you, all of you guys, do you have development budgets and you say, okay, we're going to, this year our ambition is to make 10 things or 15 things? Or is it, again, more like the Netflix model, which I'm getting more versed in, where they just wait till it's the right thing because they're not trying to compete in a way?
I think our model's it has been a bit different up here in Canada because we actually, it's been more recent that the agents and managers have gotten involved. Before that, we were almost always dealing directly with writers and producers, and it was actually kind of cool. And
Yeah.
this sort of more of a workshop model of, working with writers, starting with somebody as a stand-up, recognizing, oh, well, they've got chops for writing, or seeing someone as a sketch performer, and then just kind of like helping them carve out opportunities. And then it wasn't until sort of, the last like maybe 8 years or 5 to 8 years where we've, dealing with managers and agents. We don't really have the same system up here.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Are
Yeah.
you, is part of the ambition to go down to the States? Or is that not really in the picture? I just always wonder that if that's just an I should say a United States thing where you just want to be bigger and bigger and bigger, or,
Well,
or
you
if
grow up here, and I grew up in Ontario. I thought Tonawanda was part of Toronto.
Yeah.
You don't have this, you don't experience the difference between the two places, really. We're so close to the border. I think that if a comedy crosses over to the States, that's a success that we want. Certainly our dramas have.
Did you do Call Me Fitz? Was that you guys?
That was HBO Canada.
Okay, I just
Yeah,
met
and
Sherry
Amaze,
Elwood.
the production company Amaze, who's here.
Yeah.
So you want that crossover, but it's like any other market. It just happens to be like the biggest, most influential
Yeah,
market in the world.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I would think that would be something that people are chasing, but it
Yeah.
would be so much better not to, because it's sort of staying small and staying nimble, I would think. I mean, is that your experience with that? Well, you're a seller, right? More than anything. You're out there trying to get people to, and are you going to the States a lot for those purposes?
Well, we, rely on the States for a great deal of the stars that, sell the tickets at our festival. But, no, we're always out there looking to do any deal that helps us fund our festivals. We also are developing non-stand-up television. We have a development deal with Xbox for a sketch show with a very funny Canadian in the lead. And we're trying to build that side of the business as well.
What do you guys think of sketch? And I'm just curious if there's a philosophy about it. We're in the middle of, more than sketch, we're in the middle of an improv movement. And as somebody who comes from a writing background, I always feel like, you know how long it takes to make 3 minutes of improv? 3 minutes. Right. It really, it's a dangerous thing for us. But it hasn't quite, nobody's quite done it on TV.
Well, I think improv on TV is tricky. We've done a lot of it. Improv's huge in Canada, and
Right.
we did a lot of improv shows early on in the life of the Comedy Network, which launched in 1997, and we found that audiences at home, except for like Drew Carey's show or whatever.
You know,
I can't-
the
Whose
line
Line
is it
Thank
anyway?
you. That was weird. Except for Whose Line, improv on TV, people are like, meh, write it down, it's better. Like, they just don't seem to respond to when you're in an improv space and you're watching it and you're participating in it, there's adrenaline, you're supporting them. It's like punk rock. It's so
Yeah.
exciting. It doesn't translate to television that well. But I'm a huge fan of sketch, and of course, also big in Canada, but we don't have like our own Saturday Night Live or anything like that. And I think that like online has really been the lifeblood of the new sketch. Like that's where you find the best sketch, and thank God for it, because
Yeah.
sketch is hard for
Well,
TV too.
Yeah, in a weird way, the sketch shows that are on TV rely on the internet for their viewers.
Yeah, right.
So-
more and
so-
more. Certainly the talk shows do. I mean, it's
Oh, yeah, it's- yeah.
they're doing such great stuff on Jimmy Fallon, and it's all about getting that spot on Huffington Post. Why don't we do a little improv? Don't worry, would that be awful? Can you imagine.
Joe just fell off his seat.
Oh, he'd be great. So, Kate, tell me about, like, what is your appetite? How do you guys develop? Do you say, we're going to try to make 20 things, or we're just going to make the right things?
We just make the right things. So we just shot almost 10 comedy pilots, and, knock on wood, hopefully they'll all go on air. There's room for them all. So it's not the traditional broadcast network model. We don't cap our development budget. We're pretty specific, I think, because we have a very specific brand on what we do buy, but we're really excited, I think, when we do buy it, that we intend to hopefully get it to pilot. So
Yeah, and you also do presentations, or whatever you would
we
call
are doing
kind of, right?
Yeah, just low budget. Like the whole brand of our comedy started a few years ago by doing kind of more low to the ground comedy, where we just said, okay, what does it? It's kind of John Landgraf he'd done a lot of this. He had produced Reno 911. So it's like, if you have a point of view, a show. It's not about how much you spend on
that's
craft
an improv
services.
show, by the way.
It is,
Reno
yeah.
911. Yeah.
It's about, is it funny, and what's the show about?
Yeah.
What's the point of view behind it?
And
so that's the whole
really,
philosophy.
what's interesting about a lot of your shows, and I'll go back to Louis, is of course it's funny, but it's not. It doesn't seem like the aim is to be funny, which is different than I think a lot of us have been, what we've been chasing. And he's the funniest
Yeah,
comic
yeah.
there is. And yet there's the difference between him doing his act with just high energy and saying, I literally feel awful. I mean, I literally look like a piece of shit. And then he does in the show,
Yeah, yeah.
of course, when you try to depict that, it's sort of doleful.
Yeah,
It's kind of
yeah.
looking in a mirror and...
Well, we always say be surprising, right? Be compelling, be interesting. I think funny is still up there. I mean, there's still just gut laughs in Louis. I think when we were looking around the comedy landscape, Comedy Central was going a little younger in their target demo. HBO and Showtime, this is about 6-7 years ago, were kind of more duking out for the half-hour dramedy, not hard funny, Nurse Jackie, and like very great shows.
I know, always that strange thing to call it comedy.
Half-hour more dramedy, character dramedy. And we were like, how come no one is doing adult funny, like funny comedy?
Yeah.
And that first year was Archer, The League, and Louis. So
Yeah.
very lucky.
Really big,
Very different,
big year.
So
I would think that people would start making these things as, I don't know, have you seen that happen? Where, because we've been waiting, as the costs of editing come down, as the cost of cameras come down, are you either commissioning things yourselves or paying for things yourselves? Or just more inclined to pick up something that comes in some form as an 8-minute show?
we've done it either way. We've, had stuff that's come in that was, shot for 20 grand, and we've given them extra money to fill it out, or we own it all. So we are the studio and the network. So that's also, we're producers and the network. So that's also the very difference of the comedy
So you're
model.
kind of, but it is interesting because you're kind of a low budget. It's almost like independent. You would think of Fox Searchlight or something.
yeah.
And yet you do have the strength of Fox behind you because
Yep.
it sounds like your development
Yeah.
is robust.
Yes, and
Yeah.
and they're doing well, right? I mean, the whole
Yeah.
philosophy is if you keep the show around. I'm not articulating myself right here, but like it was built off of Sunny, where if the
Sunny
show
being
Sunny
always
being it's
sunny
always
in-
sunny in Philadelphia, sorry, that if the show doesn't cost as much, you can keep it on air if you believe in it, right? If you can give it the 3 seasons, we found Sunny took about 3-4 seasons to really kind of hit and kind of break through the cultural zeitgeist. So we believed in the show by the fact that the show didn't cost that much, we could keep it on. The whole comedy model has been run that exact same way. And turns out that it's very profitable if you bet on success, right? So it's betting on the long game, not the short game of lots of money up front. It's betting on back end. We've paid out Louis, we've paid out the guys
I'll
over
bet
at
those shows
Archer,
are expensive
Sunny.
now, right?
They're not that expensive. I mean, we've paid them profits already. I
Wow.
mean, that's pretty rare, I think,
Yeah.
that a network has paid 3 shows profits. So
Yeah.
I think the News Corps.
How many people had to deal with the issue of profits in the new world? I certainly had to deal with that, making a deal at Sony, and you alluded to how difficult the deal was. Oh, you alluded to that. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, the old model was somebody creates a show or stars in a show, they become successful, the show is obviously doing well, they get more money. In a world where doing well might mean something different than it used to. Doing well meant 29 million. I'm sure Louis doesn't do, in the 10 million number, but it does great for FX, right? And it
does. and
lifts
his
up
cost,
everything.
He's the only star, right? His cost ratio, his show is so low to produce. He owns it all. So our model's built on profit participation on the back end, right? So our showrunners, whether it be
So
Sunny, all the writers, creators.
Well, and that works because
have-
you guys sell it in the aftermarket.
Yeah.
You don't sell your stuff in the aftermarket. So is there a profit issue? Is there?
Is there a profit?
Well, Canadians don't care about that, right?
We don't actually have money.
No, but I mean, have you found a situation where you've got a successful show, you want to bring them back, and they do kind of what the actors on Friends did, where they kind of all walk out and say, we're walking out together unless we get this giant raise? This can't be good. Oh. This is from all of us. We didn't know what to get you.
I don't know if this is.
We know you love public speaking.
I'll just take this on my Mitch mic. Yeah, I mean, we have many channels. We have a conventional network, and we have specialty networks, cable, I guess what you guys would call cable or basic cable, and we have pay. So it's
So
complicated.
pay takes care of itself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, but I think that, you know, we haven't had the situation where we've had that big, you know, that, you know, the stars walk out after season
Yeah.
2 and demand the parody and that kind of stuff. But we've had our own drama, definitely in between seasons of shows for sure. But we're a network, so we're not a studio network. We don't really, we have a really different model up here.
I'm curious what your, and anyone can answer this really, just it's an opinion question, where you think TV comedy is going. There was a statement made recently by a Netflix executive which I didn't agree with, where he said eventually everything will be so narrowcasted, it'll be just for you, and you won't even see other things on the page. They'll just anticipate what you want, which is such a drag. Because it's like, and actually the Huffington Post does that too, where, you know, you just have to be so careful not to click on, you know, did Miley Cyrus stun in a bikini? You're like, oh, don't click on it, because then you're not going to get Chechnya. But, right, I mean, how would you ever get new stuff? But I'm curious about, like, how, does anybody have any prognostication about what's going to happen in television, quote unquote television, in a world where we can reach out to people directly? Think it'll keep going that way?
I think I agree with you. I think you're still going to need brands that are curators, right? Like that's what that's what I have a set of expectations for, whether it be an FX, an Netflix, an HBO, an Amazon, whoever it is that I expect a certain style of programming. And then I also expect that brand is going to give me something different too. I mean, I guess
Right.
that's the pay cable kind
Yeah,
of.
well, it's the HBO model, for
Yeah.
instance, and yeah.
I think the broadcast networks are going to get more and more like these guys, because when you look at the broadcast networks, the how low I don't think people really talk about how low those ratings are versus
No,
what they
it's-
were just 10
it's
years
shocking.
ago.
Yeah.
It is totally shocking. And they only get a lift from sports or when some reality show anomaly really takes off. And so, and when you think about it, like when I was growing up, NBC Thursdays, they had a brand identity.
Yeah.
NBC has no comedy
No.
identity right now.
And you know, it's fear. It's you when you're skiing, you got to lean down the hill, which feels, you know, you got to go right at it. And a lot, you know, when I did Arrested at Fox, they just kept putting more commercials in. We're losing audience members. Let's get some more revenue. And of course, the audience is running away even more. But even that, I mean, we were at 8 million and considered a huge failure at the time. And now I don't think very few shows get that much. So it's leaking.
I think that measuring audiences is something that is for probably another panel, because I could talk about it
Yeah.
for a really long time.
It's a
and there's-
collective myth. It's kind of like
and
we've
there's
all
really
agreed.
smart people I work for in the room who could probably talk about it. But it's a collective myth. I agree with you on that. And I think, but we do have ways of knowing whether something's connecting with the audience, and we're willing to, I think, take a risk and, you know, drive towards that in the interest of a really great second season or a really great third season, because you kind of have to. But we're businesses, and I'm part of a big vertically integrated company, and, you know, profit is a really big, important part of that. But I also think that with comedy, just to go back to what you were saying earlier, comedy's more fun if more people are laughing at it. You're always going to want that group experience, and I think that, so I don't know about that whole niche customization thing. Like, that's for sure already happening, and I'm sure all of us do it.
But the shared experience.
Yeah, but I think it is about a shared experience.
Because
and-
laughter is communication.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, particularly in comedy,
Yeah.
it's interesting. I mean, yet at the same time, the multi-camera sitcom is not doing well. At least, well, I guess it's
No,
doing
it's
okay.
kind of doing well.
It's doing okay.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, don't worry about them. They'll be
doing okay.
fine.
They're doing okay. They're doing okay.
Well, should we open it up to some questions from the audience? Is that what that sign back there meant, or am I jumping the gun?
Did you see that?
No. Oh, he's just waving.
Wait.
So anyway, my next question, I got to respond to this. Sorry, I got to take this.
My question to you is, have they talked to you about Craig Ferguson's job yet? Because I think you would be.
Oh my God. No.
Oh, yeah.
No, I could never do the accent. It would sound so fake. He's an impressive guy. Canadian? I mean, I know
almost,
obviously
because
Scottish.
he's practically married to Just for Laughs. But,
Yeah, right?
yeah.
Yeah. What is going on with those brilliant Just for Laughs videos that you made? And maybe Troy made them or made some of them.
Oh, the Candid Camera ones, gags?
Yeah. What is that? Has that ever been released as a show?
Well, it actually is. It's a half-hour format. We make about 13 a year. We have a
Oh, you
couple
still do it all the time? Yeah.
We have a couple hundred of them produced, and it's our.
And is it on Amazon or is it on
our
Netflix?
YouTube channel on the comedy rankings
yeah,
is
YouTube.
7th in the world and 82nd worldwide. It's 4 billion views so far.
Wow.
And I hand that
4
credit all
billion
to someone.
views?
4 billion views.
I wonder how many
Created by
people
two
ever
French
saw
Canadian
Abraham
guys in
Lincoln.
Montreal that are very wealthy.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Wow. Wow. People just like to see other people humiliated. you know?
Yes.
It's like it just
In
comes
Montreal.
down
Comedy 101.
to yeah, comedy 101.
I
So
like the Lincoln as a unit of measurement, by the way. The cost per Lincoln would be a good way to measure
I
the
think
show.
we're onto something. The other question is how many people are looking to Netflix and Amazon as a life preserver, or is it being looked at? I mean, I'm just curious your own personal opinions, having been on the outside of many things and found myself rooting for or against them, just from some vibe. Are you rooting for the success of those things? Have they helped anybody yet, or is it?
I'm rooting for the success of those things.
Yeah. I'm surprised to hear that. So there you have it. Joe Lewis is rooting for the success of Netflix. That's fantastic. What a wonderful, kind.
Call me when they have drones.
I do think that we're at a very high point in the terms of how many buyers are out there. It feels like a very inflated market because you can actually, when we're thinking about shows, like, why are there actually 12 places that could buy this thing?
Yeah.
And that just seems a bit off. If everyone's trying to, it's tough because buyers like talk about brands, but they also an identity. But everyone wants hits. So you can have an idea of what your identity is, but then one show can kind of change that really quickly.
And yet, I would say, if it is a brand, you would put it in every market you could put it in, right? Every supermarket, for instance.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting thing. I mean, you have to assume that what will happen is someone will come out the leader, much like Amazon did in merchandise, right? That there were a lot of players, Pants.com. There were all these people, and now everybody, at least in the States, goes to Amazon.
Great original programming on pants, though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you should start doing. Just programs that just target
24/7 pants.
Hey, if you liked Selfridge jeans, that's because Netflix could never compete with that. But I mean, like my own story is that Arrested Development was really kind of dead. I mean, it was dead. It was considered a failure, and we were barely on DVDs, but they were kind of selling. And then it was iTunes and Netflix and Hulu. Amazon came later. We were in a package deal there, but that brought it back to life. But it's kind of different, right? Because it kind of feels like, if you're famous already, the niche market you could really clean up. The question is, how do we make other people famous? Where are the next ones coming from?
Well, I think that anything where a writer or a performer can directly deal with a broadcaster or a website or set-top box kind of thing, I do think that's a good thing. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think that that there's an opportunity to really work on your own voice and to work on your own style. I mean, I think I can't personally publicly root for Netflix or
Yeah.
Amazon. I apologize, but
It has not brought in income for you in secondary markets.
No, not for us, because in terms of our business model, we're a cable company, so it's a different thing.
But you're producing too. I mean, you as a producer.
Well, I know there's a lot of comedians.
production executive,
Yeah,
I
no,
guess it's slightly different.
I haven't worked with Netflix in Canada.
Well, like for instance, here's the big stat that you could probably support is that it was Mad Men the first year had 1 million viewers, and then it went on to Netflix that summer. It had 5 million that summer, and then it came back on TV with 6 million.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was a direct. You could really track how that helped
I
it.
think we're learning from Netflix. Like, I think we're
Yeah.
definitely learning in terms of, somebody was talking about, it was, again, it was Kevin Beggs and the keynote this morning, just
Oh,
talking
I
about how the writer's room is learning from binge watching.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's totally interesting to me from a comedy perspective. To think about and anticipate, well, if I make this, 10 episodes and you're going to just binge watch through it, but I'm going to leave you Easter eggs so that if you go back and start again, there's going
Yeah.
to be more for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was this 4th season that Troy and I did of Arrested. We didn't have the whole cast together, so we did these separate stories that kind of intertwined. And part of the fun was trying to figure out, hiding something and have it, revealed later. And the statistics bore that out, where it was an enormous percentage. I mean, more than half of the people that watched it all the way through again. So maybe that is an argument for stuff that has more detail, or
Well, especially with on-demand and SVOD, and that those are areas where we really participate, and that's exciting for us to think that if we can have a show out there that audiences will watch over and over again, I mean, that's a really good kind of business plan for a television program.
But it's also exciting because you can control how they watch it. I mean, 15 years ago, people would watch on average every 3rd episode of a TV show.
Yeah.
And now I can tell you, I mean, I see the data. People either watch 1, maybe 2 episodes, or they watch the entire thing. And not only that, they watch everything in order. So for us, it's trying to figure out, it's not movies and it's not TV. What is it now?
it's a novel. I know, it's really interesting, isn't it? Sometimes I think of, like, it will become 12-episode movies, right? That it'll progress and it'll grow. There'll be an act break, and then some new twist will come in, as opposed to resetting to 0 at every point.
I mean,
I think that's part of what you're seeing. I mean, to a certain degree with American Horror Story, True Detective, Fargo. We were really excited. I know obviously about Fargo, but when American Horror Story, when he walked in with that idea, I just remember thinking, God, it's brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
reset every. I mean, it's the natural progression of Breaking Bad to Battlestar to Lost to jump cutting seasons to be like, oh, you don't have to be confined to the linear. It has to be 90 hours or
That there is something to the brand that carries people, even more than the actors, even more than the locations,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, Doctor Who has proven that. I mean, sometimes a franchise can live on, or just. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's different forms of storytelling, right? And I think if you're working at a capable place or any of one of these places, I think anytime you're trying to break what is the traditional is what we're going after. So, the idea that you can just tell a limited, awesome miniseries, comedy miniseries, and that it's something new, like, that's what people are craving. They want something new. I do.
See, I think they want the promise of an end. They want to know if that story has an end point at some point.
It's interesting. Well, and it's certainly different than the old model where you would use your television to supplement your family, right? These were people that you felt close to, and you would just have it on, and it was like warmth. And now it's really not that. It's more like reading a book.
Well, comedy's like that, though. I mean, Funny or Die, I think, is a good example of something that people do together. I've been in lots of situations where people are standing around a computer watching,
Yeah.
Between Two Ferns or whatever, and I think that, so there still are these group moments. I keep going
Isn't
back
that funny?
to that.
It's kind of like we're back to the Nickelodeon.
Well,
Like,
kinda,
it started
yeah.
with, now everyone gathers around a little teeny box.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
It's true.
yeah.
All right, so let's open it up. Let's see if you guys have questions for our panel, and they can be much more rarefied than mine if you have specific questions about your business. We can't see anybody, though. Here's a gentleman now. Well, we can continue to talk if nobody has questions, because I got a lot of them. For instance, what do you see happening? Some of you that are in business for yourselves is a little challenging, but I kind of want to talk about your own personal future. Not really personal, but like your own, the company you work for, right? What do you think, for instance, Amazon will be like in 10 years from an entertainment standpoint?
Sure. So, I didn't answer the question about development budgets, and, we are this ties into this. I'm not just going back 25 minutes. We're very regimented on this is how much we're going to do this year. This is exactly how many scripts the ratio that we think will get us this many good projects. And, at least for us, it's kind of.
So you have a number.
We do have a number, but for, it's a very Amazonian thing. I mean, we have.
And do you have a season?
We've been sort of developing into this seasonal thing. We started out, I was the first person hired on the TV side in February of 2012 or March, and by December we had greenlit 8 pilots.
Wow.
So at first we were just going as
Yeah,
quick
I
as we
remember.
could, and now we start just rolling into something a little more processed. But Amazon as a whole, the idea has always been get big quickly.
Well, the old model really was grab it before somebody else grabs it. And I have been really impressed with Ted Sarandos at Netflix, who will pass on things because it's just not right for them, whatever that means. And then he will love them on another network. He's a very non-neurotic guy too.
I mean, I
which
tell
is
my team
unusual,
that
but-
all the time, is the hardest part of our job is saying good to great things that aren't right for us.
Yeah,
And
right.
I think that is just knowing what your brand is. People, I think turn it now to a network more. I think Adult Swim is one of the great examples of this. It's easier. People show up at a certain time because they know Adult Swim's on, not even a specific show. And a
Well,
lot
and
of
the-
people have done
sorry.
that.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, please.
No, I was going to say the Adult Swim model is also interesting because it's 2 11-minute acts.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what Louis is, right? Like maybe it is, it seems like as our attention span is getting longer and we're watching these intertwined binge things, our attention span is also getting shorter.
Although he has part 6s of an elevator. I think he thinks of them actually more as a movie, as a narrative movie. Yeah, you'll see some coming up that are part 1, part 2 of an hour and a half. I mean,
Yeah.
that just happen
Well,
to be
that's the other
broken
thing.
up
We might get rid of all these things. Certainly at Netflix, they didn't seem to care when I had an
Yeah.
episode that was 36 minutes and one that was 28.
Or
Yeah.
that your, act structure needs to be defined in a certain way. Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
care as much either.
You give me credit for having much better eyesight than I do. Do you know how old I am? Oh, he's tapping his watch, right? He's tapping his watch. Sounds like. Okay. Well, I'll just throw it out one more time. If anybody has a question, now's your time to just call it out. If not. Thank you guys so much for doing this. It was so informative and really wonderful. Thank you. Good luck to you all. I'm rooting for y'all.